I'm sure we're going to hear a lot from our speakers this afternoon. I will, before giving the floor to Professor Boukouraï, I would want to thank Lhacen Belhcen and Jaime to join us for this afternoon. We are very proud to have you here at ESCA Ecole de Management this afternoon. And I want to thank especially our two guests. Denise, let me just please say that I'm very glad to have you again here in Casablanca and in ESCA. We have built so many things this long time, and we are really glad to have new projects for the future. My dear colleague and friend Jaime, I had to wait so long before having you here at ESCA Ecole de Management. It's a great day for us. I'm really glad to have you. And let me just say one word, because I think that when people know what is Morocco, I was sharing with some friends, and I was sharing that with Jaime a few weeks ago in San Diego. I always say that Morocco is something has something very similar to Mexico. We have some of the trees in common, but we have something in business which is very important. Morocco has to be to Europe what Mexico is to North America, Mexico is to USA and Canada. And we have to learn from each other. We have to learn a lot how Mexico builds and people just like these pioneers you have now in Mexico, in Central America and North America that we don't have here. But anyway, I'm very glad to have you here to share with us the knowledge you have, Jaime. I will give the floor to Professor Boukouraï. Thank you, Jamal, for doing the hard work, but it's important this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Dr. Alonso has been a researcher consultant for various companies in Latin America. So he's been both ways, helping the profession, companies willing to bridge or break into either emerging and developing markets. He has a university degrees from Mexico, Canada, and Japan. He's been around. His areas of interest are global leadership, strategic management, business models. And I just happened to learn that also he has some work to be done on global education issues, and that's very, very crucial too. Currently, Dr. Gomez is the Elder Distinguished Professor and International Business at the School of Business Administration at the University of San Diego. And he is a member of the board of directors of the Institute for Women and the Center for Women's Leadership in Mexico. In 2005, Dr. Gomez received the Dean of the Year Global Award from the prestigious Academy for International Business. He is the first and only dean from Spain and Latin America in being recognized with his award in 2012. In 2012, he was nominated as one of the best business professors of the year by the UK magazine, and it's wonderful actually to see the professors' work is being recognized, not like always the Academy Award winners, but he is one of us. And also recognized by the Economists, and also was ranked number 14 in the world. Dr. Gomez has received numerous excellence in teaching awards in Europe and America, and will be glad to read or translate your upcoming books. Okay. So recent recognitions include Professor of Impact, a USD Stellar Fellowship, and a 2-year grant from the U.S. Department of Education, Bureau of International Education. And thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you and see you today to be listening to you.
Thank you very much. We're kind of doing it together. That's why we've been a little bit out of order here from the schedule. I'm so pleased to be here again. I think this is my 3rd visit to ESCA, so I'm very happy. Looking for ways to collaborate between the University of San Diego and ESCA here in Casablanca. Today we're going to be talking about Dr. Gomez and myself, talking a little bit about, I'm going to start with more of a global overview, and then Dr. Gomez is going to bring more of his expertise in particular to, as Tammy mentioned, Mexico, its development, and some ideas that companies have grown from Mexico to the world. this, because if we're thinking about how to position the companies, whether it's Moroccan companies or Mexican companies or other developing countries, you know, they have to think about not only attracting things in, but looking to the world maybe, beyond just their own marketplace. So if we go with just a little bit of an overview, we might think of, okay, well, historically, maybe we're kind of going back to where we were, where the original countries, the big ones, were India and China, where whenever year one was. But the idea is that those were the big countries then in terms of business, and now they're going back again to the bigger marketplaces. So things are continuing to evolve. Nothing is going to stay the same. And when we think about more of the old world, and here I'm not talking about historically, I'm talking about more the old world in terms of business opportunities, and I'm meaning the US, Japan, Europe, as the old business world. These countries exist, but what about the new world, the new opportunities of the emerging markets? Now, maybe we don't even think of these so much as being emerging markets. Maybe we need to remember that it wasn't very long ago that Shanghai was really like this, and now it's a modern place. So things have happened pretty quickly when we think in terms of history, developing on the business side. But what about Casablanca and Morocco and North Africa and, you know, the emerging market that's here? What are some of the opportunities to think about? The competition is very tough, however. This might be the old business world, the big guys, the big companies coming from Europe, US, as Jaime mentioned, Mexican companies facing those in the North American marketplace. Maybe this is Morocco. But look at the advantage. Smart, speedy, fast, and has to be that way to compete against the big guys, the big, highly competitive countries and companies. But you need to be clever. So if we think about how can we be clever, though, here's a map to just look at, map based on technology. In the past, we know, currently we have a lot of the innovators, the ones that are creating the patents and doing all of these things. And then we have the adapters, the using the technology, and then we might have areas that aren't so much. Now, here we're not saying there's no patents, no new technology. It's just based on averages. But again, there isn't a lot of new ideas coming out, products, patents, research, and it needs to be developed. But again, there's a lot of opportunity because this is where all the people are. If we look at the world kind of in terms of demographics, we can think of, okay, here, this is sort of the innovators, the users, the ones that are missing a little bit, but that's where all the people are. And where are the ideas going to come from? This chart shows here demographic looking. We can think of demographics, I mean opportunities, business, etc. But the darker the color, the younger the population. So here if we look at, say, Spain or Italy or Japan, it's saying by 2050, over 40% of the population is going to be over 60. Now, I'd like to think that over 60 is not too old, but the reality is that over 60 you're not going to be producing that many new ideas and working in the productivity. So where are all of the resources and the ideas going to be coming from to create all of that new knowledge? It's going to be in the darker areas, but there's challenges in those areas as well, because that means if there's a lot of people, we need to create a lot of jobs. We need to create a lot of opportunities for sustainable development that includes all of the people in those regions. So there's lots of business opportunities for young people in these areas, job opportunities, and then to think about servicing the aging population. What is it that could come from those new markets? How to serve the people? What kind of products and services are the older people going to need? Maybe they want a lot of tourism, and they want tourism that's going to be comfortable, convenient. They're going to have the time, has 100% kind of the world economy. This means that Japan is about 23% the size of the US. Mexico, about 8% the size of the US. And what's this little country right here? Be Morocco. The size, and of course this is to scale. I mean, Africa gets kind of pushed down geographically in size when we think of the economics. But you can think of this positively, a lot of opportunity for growth. And there's not going to be, it's going to be more stagnant in a lot of the more advanced countries. What is the impact that corruption can have on economic development? But many countries are corrupt. It's not just the emerging markets. The level of, if we look at the example here that I picked some data, we can see that Denmark, New Zealand, very uncorrupt. This was the Transparency International. They ranked 174 countries in terms of corruption. The United States, if I point out here, is number 17. A lot of the corruption, as defined by Transparency International, is not just illegal activity. But when we think of corruption, it is also buying influence. In the U.S., you can definitely buy some influence, and you do it through the political process. But what does this mean? This means that unless you have the money, you can't get your ideas going. And that really stagnates development. So in countries that have a higher level of corruption, it's more difficult. Now Morocco here, according to the latest rankings that were done recently, but for last year, is 80. Improving, and actually if you look historically, improving with time. China, which we know is such a big market and growing, still a corrupt place. So it doesn't mean you can't have growth. It means it's more of a challenge, but the corruption is hindering the growth as well. Mexico, pretty close to China, and Somalia wins if this is a competition. But we have to think about, what does this mean then? How do we operate in these kinds of environments? And I don't want to give the impression that it's just those emerging markets that have the corruption, that have the scandals. Of course, we have Brazil, we have Walmart, the biggest company in the world, largest retailer in the U.S., having scandals. The chief of the IMF, I mean, I could have put many headlines here. These were just a few headlines in the last month. But we do have a lot, and this is something that as we grow, as we develop, as we're creating business opportunities, we want to think that we're creating an environment that also is socially responsible. Because it has such a negative impact on those around us if we engage in corruption and bribery. Bribery, again, same kind of impact. Can I go back to comment a little bit on the size, or I guess I could do. All right. Going with the size aspect, if we think of, we look at the size of countries, and we can see though that I mentioned Walmart in here. Look how large Walmart is to the size of some of these countries. I mean, of course, we're comparing GDP to revenue, but the idea, if we think of revenue of millions, they're almost the size of some of these big markets here. So how does this mean when you go into, if Walmart were to come into Morocco, is Walmart here? No, they're in the south part of Africa, but not in the north yet. Are they going to get a lot of access being so big? You bet. And it's going to make it harder for the smaller companies that need to be more clever, creative to respond. Again, going on the idea of size, I'm not trying to scare people, but you have to realize the reality of the small versus big, and then you have to more focus more closely on the size, on the being agile. This is the size of market capitalization of all of the publicly traded companies compared to individual companies. So for Turkey, for example, the whole size of the Turkish stock market is the size of Starbucks. IBM is the same size as all the publicly traded companies on the Mexico Stock Exchange. It's a little overwhelming. It can be a little daunting. The US, just 14 years ago, had still a majority, but much less of the top 500. The pool is still staying the same, but the US is getting a smaller share. China, look at the dramatic change from China, 10 to 95. Wow, that is quite a change in just 14 years. But also, I think what's interesting to point out are these others. And many of these are from emerging markets in the top 500. Some of them from Mexico as well. What are the challenges to go and do more business? And again, not only is it size, the access to markets, it's the ease of doing business. Singapore, number one, certainly small, you only have 5 million people. It's almost like a city organized into a country. So I just picked some here just to rank countries. And this is the ease of doing business overall. And this is starting up a business, becoming an entrepreneur. How easy is it in these countries? So a lot of this has to do with government regulations, procedures, etc. And Morocco is kind of in the middle of the pack. There's about 185, I believe, that are ranked by the World Bank. The World Bank does this listing. Morocco's kind of in the middle, and again, as I said, has been moving upward in this. We have Mexico has really jumped up in the last few years for ease of doing business. And I just picked out a few things here. The number of procedures to start a business, time of days to start a business, time to get a construction permit, and we can see that, even just look at, Japan, some of these things. In France, 183 days to get a construction permit. A lot of bureaucracy. And China, again, not very easy to do business in, but we still see a lot of business happening there. But if we want to create a culture that is going to be more entrepreneurial, we have to design the systems that make it easier for companies to start a business. What about the negatives, maybe? We know what globalization brings: more jobs, more opportunity, higher income. How is that income distributed? Is it increasing inequality? That's another whole entire debate. But we can think about when we design companies, how are we including people in the business process? How are we setting up business models that are socially responsible, as well as creating jobs and income and opportunity? We know that it's not just the developed country that has this inequality. We have Spain with youth unemployment of over 50%. This is something that is a problem. What about that generation that is leaving? I mean, this needs to be addressed. In the U.S., changes as well. Changes in job structure. We saw the list of less manufacturing, more energy, etc. Manufacturing employment in the U.S. is almost gone. Now, this is fine. New jobs have been created. The U.S. is doing pretty well. But what about the people that were in the manufacturing? How do we transition them to take advantage of new opportunities? Because it's great that this is happening, but the market can be harsh. So again, we need to think of designing our policies that consider some of the harshness of the market. Because some industries are dying. Newspaper publishing. Not too many people are reading worldwide newspapers anymore. I'll bet most of the students at ESCA are reading online. I still like a little paper in my hand, but I'm not the growing young marketplace. But there's changes. This is dying industries that are happening very quickly. And one tiny example of an industry to show this rapid change are just the smartphones. And look, this is just 2010, 2013. Number one in 2010 was Nokia. Where are they in 2013? Gone. 13 years. 3 years, I'm sorry, gone. The things happen rapid, quickly, new industries, great opportunities, but speed, agile. You need to take advantage of being smaller, bigger, flexible.
As Dr. Dimon was saying, we're really changing this picture about how Spain, Italy, and Austria, more than 40% of the population will be older than 60. And immediately, 3 young girls from the school said, I'm going to hire nurses from Morocco, $200 a month, and I'm going to take them to Barcelona and Madrid to take care of older people. I'll pay them €1,000, and I'm going to take care of the chronologically sophisticated men and women in Europe. Also, in this area of Central and Western Europe, birth rates are almost zero or negative. They immediately said, migrants will be a tremendous opportunity. There are 200 million migrants. And when they saw this particular picture, they said, yes, Morocco is small, but we're smart. And we really love those expressions from the students of ESCA Business School. Anyway, in this particular new global economy, we really need to move very quickly. So, countries like Spain and France, they spend a lot of time thinking. But here we move quickly. In the past, the big fish used to eat the small fish. Nowadays, the speedy fish gets everything. So speed is very important. We definitely need a new leader. This is our friend here, the president of the school. And he really has a new leadership, a leadership that creates and liberates and commits. But this is the rest of the bureaucracy. So we really need to think of educating the new leaders of the world. So let me start with, again, competition is tough. And I'm going to share with you 4 examples of companies I've been a consultant with. This is Grupo Arcor, and this is Luis Pagani. Luis Pagani is the CEO and chairman of the board. And this is a company in Argentina. And at the beginning of the 1990s, Mexico and the United States signed the NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, in 1994. Mexico was 14 times smaller than the US economy and 9 times smaller than the Canadian economy. Anyway, Luis Pagani said, we were having the audience in Buenos Aires, and he said, Alonso, I would like to enter the Mexican market. And I said, do you have a passport? I was kind of being a little bit curious about that. And then he said, no, you know what I mean, I want to go into Mexico. Well, they manufacture candies, alfajores, and many candies. They are really good at manufacturing. But the issue is not manufacturing. The issue is distribution and selling. When you are in manufacturing, like candies and garments, textile, they are now a commodity. So, Luis, we call him Lucho. I said, Lucho, do you really want to go to Mexico? He said, yes. So I called Daniel Servich. Daniel is the head of Grupo Vino. He was a member of my board when I was in the school, one of the schools in Mexico. And Daniel has the best distribution system in Mexico. Anyway, they quickly had a conversation. And what is the end of the final result? Luis Pagani said, instead of buying 15,000 pickup trucks to distribute my candies in Mexico, I'm going to buy 1 cubic meter within your pickup trucks, and I'm going to ride on your competencies. I don't have to buy trucks, hire drivers, mechanics, and electricians. So basically, interdependent business model. So Luis Pagani entered the Mexican because they do not cannibalize each other. They use the same pickup trucks, and everybody wins. So that is an example of creating interdependent business model. Luis Pagani became a member of Bimbo's board, and also Daniel became a member of Arcor board. That's example number 1. This is basically what I just said. This is Lorenzo Zambrano. Lorenzo was the head of Cemex, the 3rd largest cement company. It is Holcim, Lafarge, and Cemex. I actually met Lorenzo like 25, 28 years ago. And at the beginning of the 1990s, Mexico was about to sign the free trade agreement with the United States and Canada, and Lorenzo says, and they want to go to North America. How do we defend the company? And basically Lorenzo says, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to suggest to you the strategy to defend the company locally. We are going to focus on the business of cement and concrete because we really know how to do this. And the board agreed. Principle number 2, we are going to concentrate presence on dynamic markets like Egypt because they're going to need infrastructure, highways, and bridges. Do you agree? Everybody said yes. Number 3, we're going to keep the checkbook open because we're going to buy companies when we grow globally. Do you agree? Everybody said yes. And finally, we're going to use technology as the number 1 differentiator around the world. With those 4 principles, Cemex is right here in the north of Mexico. These were the 4 principles. Let us concentrate on cement, concrete, dynamic markets, selective investments, and technology leadership. And the next step was, okay, we're going to use this particular matrix because they took a seminar with our professor here, Jamal, on strategy, proximity, and attractiveness. So let us think of geographic proximity. At the beginning of the 90s, geographic proximity for Mexican companies, high priority in the United States, and very attractive because of the size of the market. So we were doing some strategy together, and basically, this is what happened. After some conversations on strategy, Venezuela, that was really interesting to serve the Caribbean countries. Spain, because Spain was joining the European Union. Brazil, too. And if we really look hard, we wouldn't find China. And it is very simple. China was closed as a market. So once they decided this is how they strategize in which countries, they also define a timeline. This is the generic tool. This is actually mine, so we can have a copy of it, no problem. So we can understand proximity in terms of geography, customers, and so on and so forth. And initially they went to the south of the United States, and they went from 280 million to $1.3 billion. Then they went to Spain, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, and Central America. Then the whole US and Colombia, Egypt, and Southeast Asian countries. And in 20 years, they became the 3rd largest cement company in the whole world. Basically, Lorenzo says, I value change. I want to move fast. I want to integrate everything. They change the language of top management to English, and they take calculated risk because all the growth was with other people's money. They never used a single dollar from their own pockets. So, and recently they did something really nice. For instance, I would say, Asia and Diamond, can I borrow your husbands for the weekend? And they will say, yes, you can have him for life. Okay. And then I have the 2 husbands. I am Cemex. And I train the 2 husbands. This is Asia's husband and this is Denise's husband. And then I train them to do blocks. I provide the raw materials and I provide the technology. This is 40% of the sales in Mexico. And basically, regular families, they used to take 5 years in building an extra room. Well, with this business model, in which I train these people and they become Cemex partners, I make 30% of return on investment. Half of what you produce goes to Cemex. Half of what the 2 husbands produce goes to these 2 ladies. Then the ladies go to a hardware store and they say, hey, my husband is a Cemex partner. Can I have a microloan? The hardware store says, yes, you are a Cemex partner. Well, it builds brand loyalty. It dignifies the position of the 2 husbands, everybody business partners, and now they are in Colombia, Nicaragua, Egypt, Bangladesh, and other extreme poverty countries. This is a socially inclusive business model. 30% return on investment. Who gives you 30% nowadays? Not even Apple has 30%. So that is second example. So basically, Lorenzo provides an addition of the future. 3 strategic strategy principles to guide growth. He used a strategy tool, identified opportunities to leverage growth, and so on and so forth, and he changed dramatically 20 years later the management team. So I went to Dr. Lorenzo and I said, why did you change all of them? He says, I cannot be in the future with the leaders of the past. Very clear. One final example. I was working with Teva. I represent a pharmaceutical company here. Teva is the 14th largest company in the whole world. They wanted to move from 14 billion to 31 billion. And immediately, this is a little like, they have been growing via acquisitions around the world. And then I said, well, I cannot get many other places. However, when I look at the portfolio of products and the markets in which they are in Italy, in Netherlands, Spain, Canada, I did notice that they were not in the base of the pyramid market. So quickly, we identified vending machines. In Japan, I spent 2 years in Japan. There is one vending machine per 20 people. And after that, I showed this picture. They said, what does that have to do with me? Then I showed this one. This is the distribution of revenues in the value chain of the pharmaceutical industry. People in the commercial part, they get 62% of the profit. In basic research, 25%. So this is where the future of the industry is. This is where the business is. So let us connect the dots. Now we have non-prescription medications distributed via vending machines to the base of the pyramid markets. They used to have something like this. Now they have vending machines. And they are selling the developing markets and making lots of money. So instead of having one aspirin inside a with 10 or 15 aspirin. Anyway, basically, these leaders and companies, they said, I want to be a shaper. I don't want to adapt to the future. I want to be a shaper. I want to be a leader. I don't want to reserve the right to play. I want to be a leader. So that's very important. I have another company which is an agricultural company. They produce broccoli, carrots, peas, and other issues. And this is a company that has basically education for all company employees. They also have, in addition to education for all employees, they invest in the community, in the micro-farmers of the community. And they also help entrepreneurs around the village and the little city. Like some gardener became an entrepreneur. And when Walmart came to talk to them to lower the prices, Jose Arteaga, the company owner, says, Walmart, come with me and let me show you what I am doing here. Walmart really liked that and declared this company, La Huerta, a certified supplier. And now La Huerta, based on people, planet, profit, peace, and prosperity, because it is a certified provider for Walmart, they are all over these places in the United States. They are all over these places in California. And they are basically around the world. They place a strategic bet into the future, helping people in the community, creating positive spirals, and now this is a worldwide company. Now they produce for Gerber, for Nestle, Heinz, they have international ventures. These are all companies from Latin America who decided to be leaders, not the followers. The idea is how to move from knowledge. It used to be hard work, now it is knowledge, and now it is design. It used to be products and services, now it is solutions. It used to be product and service, now it is let us provide valuable lifestyles. Continuous improvement, now it is differentiation. The whole idea, this is a paradigm of the past, this is the paradigm of the future. And companies really need to move, for instance, from domestic and traditional markets into more, for instance, enrich and enhance business portfolio. And the idea is to move from dominant and domestic and traditional to equal or less developed markets. This would be like in the Arabian or in the North African world. Then I go to the developed world, or I can go via innovation from domestic and traditional to international and reach. So this is what what happened in many companies when we signed in after labor. Interdependent business model, joint venture with companies from the third world, let us grow globally to developing, invest in business models that are valuable for major multinational enterprises, and finally, strategic bets to become substantially differentiated. I do believe I've been working in about 50 countries, 25 continents. They are all transferable with minor adjustments. What we have seen here, for instance, is Morocco has a tremendous opportunity to be a leader horizontally in the American world, vertically in the African world. Thank you very much.
Dr. Lhacen Belhcen will be addressing the case that was ordered by the EFMB that he co-authored. And it's regarding one of the leading companies in the money banking solutions, part of a very leading sector, whereas many companies, there's HBS, there's M2Zen, and other companies. The business case is very compelling. It will take us inside the strategies that are being used by the Moroccan company to break into other foreign markets. 90% actually of the business that is conducted by HBS is generated overseas worldwide. Mr. Belhcen, born in a very entrepreneurial region of Morocco, southern Morocco. He did graduate, he studied at the University of Lhacen Belhcen, Casablanca, Morocco, where he received a doctorate at university. And he was hired in '92 to work not only as a professor, he teaches industrial economics and corporate strategy at the Faculty of Law and Economics at the university. And then he joined the Ministry of Finance of Morocco as head of cabinet in '93. Then he joined ESCA Ecole de Management in '95 as a faculty member in charge of a corporate strategy course, and he was also the head of research department. He's in charge of the Leadership Entrepreneurship Institute, and he's passionate about it too. Okay. The main fields of his interest or key core areas: outboard FDI by Moroccan companies, international entrepreneurship and change, management, including some obviously changing paradigms. And he published recently Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Internationalization in the case of high pay at HBS, which he co-authored with Diamantine in 2011. Management and managers in MENA region, in the case of North America, with Mr. Jaime, he's not here with us. A Moroccan outward FDI in Western Africa. And he's conducted a research project on the various business models in entrepreneurship in Morocco in 2000, since 2000. So, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Lhacen.
Hello everybody, I want to present two main points. The first one, the context of emergence in North Africa, especially Morocco. And then I resume the case, HBS, and I try to answer the question how HBS succeeded in a relatively hostile context. First, let's see these data from the Global Competitiveness Report. It's about Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia. And what these countries are in common are three weaknesses. And it's important because we try to explain how a company can succeed in a context where there are major weaknesses. High education, training, and innovation are the main weaknesses of the MENA-rich economies. In this context, where innovation, technological readiness, training, and education are big challenges, how a company can succeed, how a company in high-tech business can succeed. That's the reason we chose HBS to prepare a case study. HPS is a very young company. It was created in 1985. It was created in 1995, but when we see the development of the company between 1995 and 2005, what we can point is that the country went abroad and developed a network of partners all over the world. The first clients were from the MENA region, from banks, from Gulf Arab countries. And then the second international market was the Turkish market. And then the company developed all over the world, in Africa and Middle East and Asia. In less than 10 years, the country developed a network of businesses all over the world in 4 categories. In 2005, 2015, the second decade, the second part of this short history, the country got clients in Japan, in America, in North America, in Africa, and in South America, Brazil. The question we can ask is that what are the main ingredients? What are the success key factors that HPS used to be a global small and a global small company? What are the main ingredients? The study we did about the case helped us to point 3 important key factors. The first one is a strategy of internationalization in the very beginning, in the early age of the company. HPS didn't wait until the development on the local market prepares the ingredients for going abroad and developing an international strategy. The company developed an international strategy from the beginning. The international relationship is one of the main components of the DNA of HPS. That's an important conclusion we got from this case. The second success key factor we found is that managing scarce human resources in the context developing a business model which takes into account that good, well-educated, well-trained human resources are a scarce resource that helped the management of HPS to succeed in developing its expansion abroad and in developing the innovative process, which explains the main results, the main performance. How HPS deal with the problem of scarce human resources in the region? 2 main answers. The first one is to mix senior executives with younger people in project teams. That was the first answer, the first solution, to share experiences and to prepare young executives to do what the seniors, what the founders have already done. And the second answer was the creation of HPS Academy. HPS Academy is a structure dedicated to the training in order to enhance skills and qualifications of human resources. The third ingredient, the third success key factor is a good governance and a stable team. A stable team meaning a good and stable leadership over the years. HPS was among very few Moroccan small companies who went were listed in the stock exchange market at the very beginning of its history. It went in the 90s to the Bourse de Valeur de Casablanca, and that prepared the company to be a very well-governed, a well-managed company. And second, the team leading the board and managing the company is a very stable one over 20 years. This makes it possible to develop a network locally and internationally. These three main lessons seem to be, for me, something that is very important to understand, to learn, and to do research about for helping other family business companies in Morocco to succeed in their strategy of internationalization. Thank you.
Thank you for the testimonial and the presentation regarding the HBS business model and other intake. Again, please keep your questions for later on for the workshop. And now I'll be introducing our colleague, Mrs. Zoulikha. Mrs. Zoulikha Maaroufi obtained her her degree in economic science, major in international economic relations of Lhacen Belhcen University in Casablanca. Her main research is focused on factors of competitiveness. Morocco explores to the European markets, the marketing approach internationally and international strategies. She is participating in the redesign of some marketing training programs for the benefit of professional training for various companies, conducted training and participated in launch of the training offshoring in collaboration with expert speakers from Siena and Paris. And she'll be presenting a great success story of the revamping a traditional company that went from traditional clothing to become a leading contender in MENA. And it's about the name of the company is Diamantine.
Thank you for your presence. And thanks to ESCA School of Management to give me this opportunity to present my projects about Diamantine scales and for present business practices. The President Director General of Diamantine's wished to participate to this workshop, but apparently he couldn't come because of his participation at the opening of outlets in Dubai. First, I start with a brief presentation of Diamantine, and then I will highlight their key success factor. Diamantine is a branch of distribution membership of the one of the largest family holding subgroup present on the Moroccan textile market since 1918. Subgroups has developed expertise in all areas of the textile industry: sewing, texturing, spinning, printing, weaving, manufacturing, and distribution. The aim of the leaders was to democratize the traditional dress, makes it accessible to all segments of the population, offering quality clothing with a good price, and especially products really available on the shelves. And we have an example of the products of Diamantines. Now Diamantines is the first more modern shell store of traditional modernized mobile, and in mobile, also in mobile. But the most important thing about Diamantine, he's has also created a new sales concept, true second, respecting a number of merchandising standards not present in traditional outlets. Between 2009 and 2014, Diamantine increased from 40 points of sales to 100 all over the country. Diamantine products are also present over the world through multi-brand stores, such as Algeria, Tunisia, Middle East, Western Europe, and North America. Diamantine has succeeded in developing a true Moroccan brand for the traditional ready-to-wear. You have the brand of Diamantine, and in the 4th edition of Morocco Awards 2012, Diamantine was awarded first Moroccan distribution and trademark. And what's explained the success of this great company? You have some factors, a long-term vision with a strategic approach perfectly studied, customer focus, the group's expertise in the business of textiles and clothing, the control of all processes of production, or marketing and supply chain, the managerial know-how of leaders, and the most investments was spent in human resource, the best skills, craftsmen, designers, store managers. Diamantine is very competitive, whether in terms of innovation, differentiation, product quality, and prices. Diamantine, therefore, this Moroccan business model is comparable to that followed by a number of major European retailers of ready-to-wear such as Zara, Mango, and H&M. Diamantine offer a challenge, marking the history of Moroccan traditional dress, moving from fashion craft production to an industrial production fashion. And to close this presentation, I want to communicate a message from Lhacen Belhcen, the president of Diamantine. But I say, I speak in French for this message. Excuse me. Donc, puisons dans le... C'est un message qu'il voulait transmettre à nos invités d'aujourd'hui. Donc, comme je l'ai dit, il ne pouvait pas venir participer donc, à ce workshop. Il aurait souhaité y participer. Et malheureusement, donc, il devait participer en fait à l'inauguration de l'ouverture de son point de vente à Dubaï. Donc, puisant dans le riche patrimoine de notre nation, en le poids fondamental de valeur ajoutée, avec l'aide de son peuple et pour son peuple, et en le faisant rayonner à travers toutes les frontières. Notre pays le mérite. Merci. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mustafa, who happened to be the general manager for Dell, in charge of HR, is a software engineer from Grenoble, which is obviously we have sometimes a relationship with Grenoble. Before he joined Dell, he worked for the next competitor, which is HP, where he was in charge. He was wearing all kinds of hats, in charge of the global, from business development to outsourcing and whatnot, to end up finally with Dell. As you all know, one of the leading contenders, who's been around in some of the toughest competitive markets ever. And if we look at the presentation that we see, there has been a lot of changes. I mean, companies about close to 30% that used to be in the Fortune 500 are no longer there. And surprisingly, some companies are becoming very perennial, and they've been there, and that's absolutely impressive. And I'm sure it's thanks to executives who bring in their experience, because the technology changes, but human resource and capital is absolutely amazing. He's also an entrepreneur. He started his company right after graduating from Lhacen, and at some point he had about 60 engineers, and that's how his relationship started with HP. And then he, to improve his engineering skills, like all the entrepreneurs with the spirit, with learning as they grow. He did his MBA in London Business School, and spent also some time with the HC, HEC Montréal. So he knows basically the challenges that we need, and the kind of experience that he brings into academic and my friends and scholars over here that need to obviously bridge the gap between the enterprise market and what we do. So I thank you for being here, and I hope it did will deliver enough.
Wisdom. So thank you for the invitation. Very pleased it turned out to be kind of last minute's invitation. Just to tell you the story of Dan has been at Canada in 2003. And find that it was a great opportunity. Then started, I would say, 20 engineers. Now we have 1,700 engineers. So it's the largest, in fact, technology, high-tech investor in Morocco. And we have been through different transformations, I would say, and we believe in one thing. We believe, and we keep saying, Morocco good time. And in fact, when I joined there just 4 years ago, so I was working outside of Morocco, in Europe, in the US. After this, I was very close to some people for several times. Working also with the University of South Ireland, HP offices. John came just 4 years ago, and then Casablanca, when we joined here, the company was not being part of the African community, but all the management and the executive was based in South Africa. One of the biggest challenges that we had to do is start changing that. So we, it took us about 2 years. Now, in fact, we changed Morocco, Casablanca, because of the size, because of the talent we're getting here in Morocco, is the main hub for Africa for them. So we are managing now most of the African countries directly from Casablanca. My colleague, the GM, Ahmed, who is the sales manager, is managing all these countries, the sales force of these countries directly from Casablanca. The only country we are not managing from Casablanca is South Africa, for obvious reasons. Two good news, in fact, just to show you that we can be proud to be Moroccan, and to show that then Morocco got talent. The last 2 GMs that have been announced when we did work there, there were 2 Moroccan. One of them took the regional sales for all the region, Middle East and Africa and Turkey. And the second one was announced just last week. The GM of France. France is one of the biggest IT markets for that. And the GM of France is who was the one who started the then Casablanca.
And so it's nice to hear also that almost getting closer to half, 50% of your workforce and skilled force is composed by women, and that's great. It's something that is North American investors should know, that Moroccan society is very proactive, very modern, and it's a lot of initiatives have been taken. And actually, to prove it, we'll give the word to one of the talents. She's a CFO, has For the time being, she's a CFO for the MSF, which is a company in pharmaceutical industries. They have an extensive line cards. And there are meetings in many areas, including diabetic medications, contraceptives, which is a very important issue in developing markets. We have a lot of debate regarding the use of contraceptives and also abortion. She did work also with GSK in Casablanca, Avon, again, a company that does work, encourages women to start in micro businesses. And we're glad to have you, and I'll give you the chance, please, to share with us your experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here today with you and to have the chance to meet you also with me. Always great pleasure. And also, I already met you, I believe, in the last time. Great pleasure. Thank you so much for getting me here. I just would like also to share my experience with multinational companies, because I had a chance, since I came back 2 years ago, tomorrow, to work mainly with multinational companies, I would say. The good thing about this is the fact that it's bringing a lot of support to the people. What I learned by working with multinational in terms of very advantage is the fact that one of the rules that we need to follow when we work with such companies is ethics. Wherever I've been, all the companies I've been working with, starting with Anderson, my firm, a company firm I started with, ethics very important for us, and that was one of the first steps that helped also a business to, well, I would say, to grow to grow and to maintain and to become existent and continue the existence of the company. Number one for us is ethics. The reason why ethics is so important these days is, as Denise has presented earlier, corruption is still one of the most, unfortunately, most of the drama we have in our lives. In order to try to control a little bit this corruption and work on putting some rules, it's really very important to stick to the values and go back to the basics, respect others, and by doing that, ensuring also that what we're doing on a daily basis is something that we are not afraid of when we sleep at night. So somehow this is something quite important for us. Number two, I would say, is something also very common to all of us here, is the fact that investing in people is very important. So in most of the company, again, that I work with, and specifically within MSD these days, training of the people is very important. So there is a program tailored for each of the departments. We have a specific program for the sales force to ensure that all the year they are attending training programs and ensuring that there is also a certification. Once they attend the training, ensure that indeed they like medicalists, where people get answers to their diseases or to different pathology. So this is the kind of value added we are giving today, which differentiates us from many other companies. Also, when the center goes to visit the doctor these days, he has his laptop, his iPad with him, and he can be interactive with the doctor. So this is something that we really share, and this is something really, in terms of technology, in terms of knowledge, we make that kind of differentiation today. When it comes to training, it's not only the marketing of the sales force, it's also all the support functions that goes into these training sessions. So this is the kind of investment that we have, and we have access to e-learning, to the face-to-face video conferences. And I would say that NTC and also GSK and also EYE are companies that do invest a lot behind the training of their people. Number 3, which is very important and critical for us these days, in order to keep up and ensure that we make a difference, is investing also in the business intelligence, business information. Here again, we do spend a lot of money trying to collect the information from the market, but also these days try to collect also the information that we can find on the internet. There is tremendous information there, but it's now really up to us in order to try to ensure that the information which is there somehow we benefit from it. And I've been seeing the slides that you've shared with us today and training. It's unbelievable where we are today in terms of Morocco, where we want to be. And we could be, we could grow definitely much more in the few coming years, because we do have, as you said, talent, and there is great opportunity here. That's all I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Now we'll move on to Mr. Samir Sadouni Sahawi, well known for some landmarks that he developed actually in northern Morocco, starting with Marina Asmir, which is a popular destination not only in the past. There's also a substantial amount of projects that are being developed around the area. So it takes somebody to trigger the demand, the pent-up demand. So I guess you left some landmark there.
My message is, for me, Denise said, we're small. Yes, we're small, as compared to soon, first steps. But unfortunately, smaller doesn't necessarily mean smarter. It's an advantage, more agile, all those things you said, but and less educated to the world needs of 2015, 2030. Smaller, younger, might even become a threat instead of being an advantage. So for me, unless smarter, unless educated, for performance, for excellence, for production, for work, it's useless to be small. You're just small and you remain small. So education for culture of performance and desire to learn and learn more, and curiosity. Performance from actors, but also performance from those who are supposed to support those young actors. Listening to them. The banks. You know, it's always mid and small-sized companies that can really do or not do the future. A mid-sized company here is not listening to by the banks, for example. The banks we were saying this with Jaime just before we started. The banks wouldn't listen to you unless you had $2-3 million deposited in the bank. Small and mid-sized companies don't have that kind of money. They might have ideas, but people do not listen to ideas yet in our country. It's my talks, and my ideas do not talk yet. But this is directly linked again to the education issue. And our education issue is huge. This is my personal conviction. And I'm not saying that nothing is wrong. We have think tanks that have been, dealing with this for decades. But nobody has yet focused and stressed out the importance of education at primary school. Childhood. That's where everything happens or doesn't happen. So, governance, education, in order to create a real culture of work and things. That's what makes a difference between China, which is corrupted, as you mentioned, and Morocco, which is equally corrupted, except that China does perform, and we do not perform as we would wish. Thank you.
Well, thank you for up close and personal. It's good to obviously look. Critical thinking is very important, and it is. That's the whole thing is about trying to improve, to be very competitive. I mean, to be doing marketing guerrilla at a smaller scale, maybe nationally, you have to be find ways to be very competitive. Something is right. It's true. We're still not there yet. Magic Leap has raised about over $2 billion, and one of the head the decision makers is a fiction novel writer. Okay, and that's the beauty about the ecosystems when it comes to startup. That we value creativity. There has been a shift. I mean, like today's a lot of CEOs are right brainers instead of being left brainers. What we will do to digest all these beautiful testimonials, rich, we'll go for a coffee break, and you go. Okay. Well, listen. Any questions, please? Open mic. We have open source ideas. Your turn. Any questions, please? Ça peut être aussi en français.
Let me provide 2 or 3 comments, and then we can all have a conversation on innovation. We can have different levels of innovation, like let's talk about innovation in the management of the school. Traditionally, in French or in German or in American educational systems, you have academic departments, you have marketing, finance, and so on. And then you have academic programs. So you have the head of marketing or the finance department and the head of the Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. And then, it looks like these people go for research, they go for content, and they try to have the programs with students. So what I did in a private school was, what do I want? I want programs to be really market-oriented, very quickly to respond, and I eliminated all the academic departments. Literally, I closed the department, and the head of the program was the product manager and the brand manager. So if a professor is not good enough to perform a good class, this program director doesn't want that professor. So we created supply and demand inside the school instead of having 2 different markets. So one is the program director and the brand manager, and the school was moving really quick. Now, how do we teach innovation? Well, the fundamental question is it something that we can teach? The answer is yes. And there are many techniques, including the flipped classroom, in which the professors really play a different role. Instead of preaching, the professor is more like an orchestra conductor. Pretty much what our friend was saying there. There are also very specific techniques in which we invite the students to formulate situations, like in medicine. My son is a medical doctor. Problem-based learning, project-based learning, as opposed to lectures from the old sapient professor, the one who has all the knowledge being transferred to empty knowledge. So there is a set of techniques that we professors need to learn in order to foster innovation. And then how do we measure that? Which is another very important issue. In our case, we said we want to measure innovation-driven entrepreneurship in terms of jobs being created, companies being created, and mortality rate. So we need to put together. For instance, I would immediately start by having professors being trained in innovation-driven methodologies. And there are many. And that's a program actually that we were discussing today, how ESCA could develop a program in innovation for higher education institutions in Western Africa and around the world. So how this school is going to play a prominent and preeminent role in innovation as a driving force for differentiation. If you give me your email or a business card, I can send you a bunch of web links in which how to teach innovation, how to foster innovation in schools of business, but also in schools of engineering, schools of education, schools of architecture. So the whole idea is exactly pretty much what you're saying, but it takes a process. For instance, if a professor is pretty much a lecturer, innovation will happen.
Thank you very much.
First of all, I just want maybe to give some ideas about the practice we have here in the school about how we use innovation, we teach innovation, and so on and so on. Innovation is, we consider since 2 years that innovation is an important axis at a school here at ESCA Ecole de Management. And we have at that time decided to hire a faculty member who is specialized in innovation and particularly using design thinking as a tool for innovation. And Professor Nabil here is in charge of teaching and working with students and on this kind of topics, and particularly how to manage innovation and management innovation and innovation management operations, how to work with teams and innovate. And now, when I had to work with Professor Hilali, maybe 4 months ago, I asked him, what can we do more? And after a short discussion, we decided that we have to address an important population in the school. As you know, we are here a human-sized school. It's not a large state university with a lot of people and so on and so on. And we said, okay, the population we have to address is our colleagues. We have to work to change the paradigm of the faculty and to change the way our colleagues think and use innovation. And that reminds me, maybe 15 years ago, we decided to give some courses in English. And we had the third revolution in the Arab world. Because students said, no, English, it's okay to learn the language. That means you want us to learn in English, it's something which is unbelievable here. And now we have a lot of students that use English naturally, I should say. Because they understood this is a wonderful opportunity to have a global perspective. In French, we call it internationalité. How can we think global and international if we don't use the right language for that? Maybe the right for the future will be Mandarin. But now we have to use English still, until we didn't have the disruption coming from China. I think that these tools, critical thinking, who's Dr. Jaime is here. Dr. Jaime will always explain in our executive committee to the faculty and to the members that if we want to work with students and to develop critical thinking, we have to use interdisciplinary, we need to work in an interdisciplinary way. And this is something which is in common in Morocco. And this is the real first disruption. When the students come here after the high school, we always tell them, this is very critical to Morocco, we always tell them, you know, here we don't have a differentiation between need all talents, and we need all point of views. And maybe some of our students, which is not common in Morocco, can succeed in finance if they were taught in mathematics when they were in high school. Why? Because they come to another step, and they have to learn, the way they have to learn is something that will be different. Just to conclude on this, and maybe give two questions to the colleagues. We have a lot of work to do even in school, which is a kind of pioneering here in this area. But we have still a lot of work to do. We just began, we know that innovation. I had the wonderful opportunity to visit Stanford. And when I visited Stanford, the person who was planning the visit told me, we're going to begin by the business school. And I said, yes, but I want to see the D school, the design school. I said, okay, first business school, then engineering school, then the design school. I said, please, I want to see the D school. So we went through the business school, this wonderful campus, then I went to the design school. And when I understood what was the design school, the first thing they explained to me that design school is a non-degree school. So, but design school, in this school there is a very large demand from students from all university. That's it. What is the main population you have here in this school? They said the main population we have, because the design school is innovative, is to learn how to be innovative. And they said the most students we have are coming from the medical school. Then I went visiting the D school, and when I get out from the D school, I said, my God, now I can understand why Dr. House is always thinking out of the box. I mean, just why? Because we have to manage complexity, and we have to make decisions, and we have to make our students learn how to make decisions in complexity that we can describe. We can explain that we will face complexity, but we don't know what kind of the complexity they have to face and how to decode this complexity. I mean, it's something very, it's only a concept you want to share with the students, but you just want to tell them the future we don't know about it. The skills you need in the future we don't know about it. The jobs you're going to have in the future we don't know about it. The way we're going to use technology in the future we don't know about it. So what can we teach you? The only thing we can teach you is how to think, to manage situations when they are complex. And this is the main important thing. I have two questions. One is for Jaime, Dr. Jaime Gomez, about CMIX. You know that in the recent month, Lafarge and Lhacen decided to join and to work together. And I think this will be a wonderful business case about cross-cultural management and how Swiss and sharp with the French Latin thinking will manage the way they can do things, and particularly on the issue of ethics. Because the way some of them behave worldwide concerning ethics is not the same. My question is the following. A group like a group Muslims could, as the group is native from an imaging country, could feel very quickly the opportunity in Africa. But it didn't go to address the African market. I mean, I understood that in Egypt. Egypt is hybrid. Egypt is Middle East and Africa. Egypt is Anglophone, and it's easy to go to Egypt because this is the market protected for investment since it was not for a long time. But Africa has really a large market of building infrastructure. And now we have some Moroccan companies that invest in cement in different countries in Africa. So what do you think about Africa?
The other example which is quite close to me is Michael Dell. Michael Dell, when he started, he didn't create peace. hourly method. But really, the great idea there was not technology, it's just like change, which is changing the game. I'm coming back to your question about the IT. I believe we are not still in our schools, IT schools, we are not still, I would say, allowing people to move from theoretical aspect to the practical. I believe this is a dimension that has been missing a lot in our education system, and I faced it. I was in the technical side. The first time I went to the US university, when you go there, I was very good in theoretical stuff, but building stuff was not good. I had to learn it outright. So this is, I think, most important thing for me is how we create this bridge between theoretical aspect where we are good at in Morocco to this practical aspect. And this is something that is really important. That's really one of the elements. It's not the only dimension, but it's one of the dimensions, how to move idea from, let's say, being theoretical idea to bring them to a reality. And I'm really happy to see that a lot, at least in the Indian space, a lot of entrepreneurs here are bringing some new idea, really getting, having investors, having, I would say, convincing investors to help them with their idea to bring them to the market. It's starting, it's still not there, but I would say this bridge between theory and practical activities.
And the objective, the main goal is basically spreading this mental shift, state of mind, to develop a philosophy within scientific school, chemistry. As you say, a lot of people are focused on other innovative thinking has to be everywhere. And that's a major shift, and it's true. The educational system has been very archaic, some compared to as it seems, some GS. It's almost as archaic as the old medicine used to be. So what we should focus not on innovation, but on innovative thinking. Okay? Any other?
Just one thing. I want to share, in fact, and this is really my first experience. People here in project management is one key element. What we are finding right now, we have deep side courses in Slovakia, more German, web-oriented. We're finding that really successful projects work when we put some people from Morocco at the beginning of the project, because they equate well with complexity, with ambiguity. They are not scared about what they do. They talk to vice president. When it came and it comes to put more rigor around, it starts to be difficult. And that's where we bring some people from project managers to help us build in it. And this combination is working very well. I'm finding a good equation for successful projects.
To answer the question about CEMEX, remember that I'm going to be a little bit I'm going to use the same framework. We have proximity and attractiveness. Within attractiveness, there were several factors that Lorenzo and his team were considering. Friendly governments, interest rates, distribution channels, market size. That was within attractiveness. And the Egyptian government was actually very friendly. Let me just give you another example of friendly governments. When CEMEX bought Valencians and sold in Valencia in Spain, the interest rate to buy the two operations was 0. So no interest rate, so that was easy to buy Valencians and so on, and use Valencia as a way to distribute cement in northern African countries. So they chose Valencia because of that, as opposed to come into the African continent. That was reason number one. Another one is that the strategy was sequential. For instance, they went from Monterrey, Mexico, to Texas, and then California, and then the southern part of the United States. Because it was the same similarity, or very similar in terms of construction techniques. They came to Spain because of very similar construction techniques, interest rates equal to 0, and then it was in sequence: Monterrey, Valencia, Egypt, Manila. So it was kind of a corridor to supply emerging markets. That was a second reason. And the third one, it was basically Lorenzo Zambrano went to Cairo, and he had very, very, what is the expression, persuasive meetings with people who really wanted to have a cement operation in Egypt, and they said, we will offer you this company. So the way to actually enter company was via acquisitions. It was not a greenfield operation. Lorenzo always bought companies, they had a clientele, they had infrastructure, they renovated the technology, and that's how the growth was taking place. So Northern Africa didn't seem to have the same situation like the other countries. So it was via corridors, exactly as I presented. So he was trying to fix the situation in Spain, and he just recently had refinanced $15 billion, and while being in Madrid, he heard about the Lafarge causing merge, and his heart didn't resist. He died.
Oh.
He died at that particular, like a day after, he died in his sleep. And now Cemex is going through a reconfiguration process. They split the chairman of the board and CEO into two positions. And that's exactly managing ambiguity and uncertainty, a family business, worldwide, how do you deal with that? And I totally agree with you to the management of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. You have the VUCA environment. Many times, it is much better to have people from emerging economies because they know how to deal with it, as opposed to very well established. Like I remember one time, I asked a group of executive MBAs, please do a compare and contrast essay on this particular set of articles. And then they said, well, you didn't give us the compare and contrast variables. Come on, can you think? Critical thinking, as Dr. Amigo has said. So the story about Cemex is now Cemex is trying to, they changed the whole business model, and now they are exchanging assets. Holcim says, I'm going to give you my assets in Eastern European countries, but you give me your assets in, let's say, Latin America. And so that's how they are doing and managing ambiguity. And it is a very interesting process because it's non-monetary agreements. They exchange clienteles and infrastructure. So it's a new way of managing the new mergers and the new acquisitions. And that would be a good topic for Jamal's seminars when we will have the exchange, strategies to manage VUCA environments. So it's a really interesting topic.
Except for the northern region. But I do think that, say, if I take more from the U.S. perspective, although there are U.S. companies going into Africa, I think it's more of an unknown. I think that a lot of education needs to be done of the opportunities. And, when you talk about Africa, a lot of people in the U.S. aren't going to be able to differentiate where you're talking about or what the markets would be. So I think there could be some missed potential for business opportunities if there's not some more education that's done about the continent as a whole.
Frontier market is really the whole topic of all those workshops that we've been developing over the past few years, and we have actually been committed to weeks to have a return from anyway coming for exactly this kind of purpose, because offering them the nuts and bolts of how to break into these emerging market, frontier markets, because they're better than
we talk a lot about education, so my question is how we can teach children around 16 years or 15 innovate critical thinking for habits guide to think big after school.
Well, we've done it with you.
Yes.
Here. We've done this experimental program that lasts
This is an NGO.
This is an NGO, GCI Impact is actually a global organization that are in over 97 countries. They just celebrated their 100 years, and so many U.S. presidents and so others are part of the Indian movement. And that's what they do, is really bringing entrepreneurship startup at a much lower level. And actually, this is not something new. So basically just doing something that Adam Smith, he did in 1835, teaching leadership between 16 and 19, and the class used to be 10 by 900. And that's part of the experiment with you guys, and I hope you like the experience.
But you are not a guinea pig, you are a pioneer. Guinea pigs die, pioneers already were.